right. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon from wherever you are in the world. Welcome to our webinar. Today, we are talking about building amazing lead lists, and we're going to jump right in. So, we're going to run through this agenda a little bit. We're going to do some housekeeping. I'm going to talk very briefly about myself. We're going to dive straight into talking about the filters available to you in Apollo. And then I'm actually going to share my screen and we're going to go through how to build amazing lead lists in Apollo. At the end, we are going to do a Q&A. This is sponsored by my employer, Apollo. Many of you probably are Apollo users, but if you're not, head to apollo.io. You can create an account for free. Apollo is the world's only end-to-end sales engine with everything you need to grow your business from A to Z. Couple more things just so you know. Today we're talking about building lead lists. There's a ton we're not going to talk about. We're not going to talk about copywriting. We're not going to talk about sequences. We're not going to talk about cold calling. If you need training in those areas, go to apollo.io/academy. We have a ton of content for you there. And if you're not familiar with the knowledge base, I highly recommend you become familiar with it. We'll talk about it a little bit today. It's knowledge.apollo.io. With that being said, I'm Josh Garrison. I'm our VP of Product Education and Content Marketing here. I've spent my whole career in sales. My particular expertise is in outbound, and I've done your job, y'all. I've been an SDR, an AE, sales leader, an entrepreneur, basically everything in the middle, and for companies of all sizes, from my own one-person company to multi-billion-dollar publicly traded companies and many other kinds. So with that being said, let's dive into it. In my experience, everybody, 80% of your success in outbound sales comes from the quality of your list. So people spend a lot of time talking about their sequences or their copy or their subject line or their tactics for selling. But if you're not building a quality list to start with, none of that other stuff matters. To me, it's 80-20. Good list is 80%, 20% is going to be based on how good you are at reaching out to them. With that in mind, let's talk about what a good list looks like. What it doesn't look like is spray and pray. Okay, so that might work for some of you if you've got a really compelling product and really strong product market fit. But for most of you, Apollo data shows that it doesn't work at all. So what we need to do is we need to build lists that give us meaningful information about our prospects. Okay, and I'm going to talk exactly about that in this webinar. The first concept I want you all to get on board with and go along with me for is that smaller, highly specific lists are better than bigger, generic lists. That's because we always should be thinking one step ahead. I want to be thinking at the time that I'm building my list, how I'm going to use that to craft my outreach. So even though this webinar is not about copywriting, it's not about building sequences, this webinar is only about building lists, I know that the next step in my process is reaching out to people. And I want to be thinking about that as I'm building my list, and I'm going to show you guys exactly how to do it. So before we get into Apollo, I want to talk about the filters available to you in the Apollo platform today. There's a lot of them. And we break down broadly across several different categories. There's filters that break down from on the person level. Those are things like job title, management level, department, location, how long they've been in their job, that kind of stuff. Then there's filters around the company, the industry you're in, company size, technologies the company's using, jobs that they're hiring for, whether or not they're growing, and something called intent data that we will talk about at length in this webinar. We have filters around behavior, whether or not they're opening your emails, answering your cold calls, that kind of stuff. Whether or not they're visiting your website. This is a feature that's coming soon to Apollo. Just going to tease it, not going to talk a lot about it today because it's not live for most of you. Whether or not they're talking to you, you're having conversations with them, and then all kinds of things around news, funding, locations, if they're hiring roles, how you've scored the lead, your relationship with them. And then there's lastly, really important filters around data quality. So with all these different filters available to you, it can be a little overwhelming to know where to start. So I'm going to try and give you a structure. Okay. The most commonly used filters in Apollo are these: email status, job title, industry, keywords, location, management level, and number of employees. I'm going to show you in a couple minutes how to use just these filters to get really, really, really targeted with your list building. But if you're only using those filters, you're leaving some money on the table, because there's another layer of filtering you can do when you're building your lists that's going to up your game. Okay. And I call these pivot filters. And I invented this term, so you probably haven't heard it anywhere else. And if you Google it, you're probably not going to find it. But I call it a pivot filter because this is a filter that anything else I do after I apply it is going to reference that filter, meaning I'm going to use this pivot filter to personalize my emails and my calls. Okay, so I'm going to pause because I've been going fast. I'm going to let you guys catch up. I'm going to drink some water. But a pivot filter is, I think, the thing that separates the best from the rest when it comes to building lead lists. This is how you're thinking one step ahead. You're always thinking about how you're going to use it. And anything can be a pivot filter. We're going to talk about a bunch of them today. But if you're creative enough, anything can be one. You can get really targeted with the location. You can get really targeted with the industry. And you can build your messaging around that, the presence of that filter. But some filters are probably like more accessible than others, okay? And there are things like this: technologies, job postings, headcount growth, buying intent, news, funding, if they just started in their job, if they've changed jobs. These are pivot filters that are pretty easy for you as a salesperson to wrap your messaging around, right? To use to craft your messaging. And I want to give you guys an example. So let's say we've got some basic filters over here on the left: industry and location, job title, and company size. Everybody knows about those. If I layer in a buying intent filter, that can become my pivot. And I can, instead of sending a really basic email that's like, hey, Bob, do you want to buy my stuff? I now know something about them because of the presence of this pivot filter that lets me personalize my message. And I'm going to show you an example right now. Let's say I'm selling marketing services. About 100 of you guys who submitted questions before the webinar were selling marketing services. So I thought I'd use that. If you use a buying intent filter for search engine optimization, your message can pivot around that. And you can go from sending a really basic message to something that's really targeted, like what I have on the right-hand side. So if I wanted to get really targeted and go, I'm selling to people who are in Sacramento, California, in the HVAC industry, and they're the CEO of the company, and the company has less than 50 employees. Those are my basic filters, okay? But on the right-hand side, I've got search engine optimization as a buying intent. Here's what I can say. I can go and I can then do some research on that company, and I can say, hey, I know you're ranking on page 3 for HVAC in Sacramento. There's some things I think we can do to boost your rankings. Last year, I helped 10 other companies hit number 1. I think I could do the same for you. That's a way better email than just a templated email that you're using based on just, these filters over here, right? So this is a concept I want you guys to wrap your head around, using some filters to then build your messaging around. And I'm going to jump into Apollo in a second. So here's some questions that you guys submitted beforehand. How do I find a really specific type of company? How do I search by zip code? What's the best way to search by job title? And how do we build this by combining filters like industry title and keywords? How do I exclude people? I'm going to jump into Apollo right now. I'm going to show you how to do all of those things. And then we're going to get into some more advanced usage of Apollo. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to hide my own face so you guys can see the screen more. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm here in my homepage in Apollo. I'm just going to click search on the left-hand side. And that's going to bring me into search. And you'll see that I have some filters on the left that are pinned here by default from Apollo. Okay. So what I want to talk about now is some of those basic questions you guys asked around job title, location, industry, keywords, etc. The first filter I actually want to show you guys is one that's only about 16% of Apollo users use it, but it's the most important filter to me. It's right here on the left. It's email status. So this filter immediately lets you weed out people who we don't have email addresses for, which is like really important. It's the whole reason you came to Apollo, right? So I'm going to start by only selecting people who are verified and have verified emails in Apollo. And that's going to be the first thing that I even look at. And you'll see that I've gone from like 220 million people to 84 million people. Okay. So this is a filter I want you guys to take a look at, to be familiar with. But the only thing you really need to do is just click that verified button. All right. So now we're going to get into some of those other filters. So I'm going to start with job titles. So this one's actually a little tricky because what about 90% of people do is they'll just use this part of the job title search. Is any of like manager or whatever. But there's a lot more you can do with job titles. As you can see, if I scroll down, I've got management level and I've got departments and job function. Okay, I want to talk about these. So a lot of you guys were asking questions before the webinar of like, hey, so I sell into a certain industry, but people could have a lot of different titles. How do I handle that? Like maybe it's really tedious to come into doing this job title search over here and trying to figure out all those titles. So I want to show you guys a couple things, right? The first one is that if you scroll down, you can get into departments and job function. So I'm going to give an example. Let's say you're selling you want to sell into human resources and you know that the person you're trying to sell to manages the compensation and benefits at that company. So maybe you're a payroll provider, right? Maybe you're an insurance company or an insurance provider. People who do that probably have like 20 or 30 different titles that could be their job. But if you come into Apollo and you just click compensation and benefits, this is what I want to show you that's maybe a little different than what you're doing now. Look at all of these titles that are coming up for this. Compensation benefits, deputy manager, head of compensation benefits, talent acquisition and compensation. There's all these different titles that fit that job description. So this is the first thing I wanted to show you all is you can actually just right away have a whole bunch of different titles available to you on the left side just by going into figuring out their job function. Now, if you want to get more targeted, you can say, I'm only going to hit up VPs who are important, like really important people who are leading up compensation and benefits. So now if I'm a payroll provider, I have a really good list that I've just built right here. Okay. So that's one thing to know about job function or job title. The second thing I want to show you guys is right here, and it's include past job titles. So some of you asked about this. It's like, what if I want to see what they've done in the past? Maybe I want to look for a VP of compensation who in the past has done payroll. And that's going to bring my list down from like 80,000 people to 195,000. So when we talk about pivot filters, okay, this could be a pivot filter because I could now build a message for these 195 people who I can say, hey, as somebody who's now leading payroll, who used to be a payroll manager, I know that you care about this or something like that, right? Like you can get creative with your outreach because you've gone one level deeper, okay, than just whatever their job title is right now. The other thing that you can do is you can exclude job titles. So let's say I want to have these VPs who are doing payroll or benefit management, but I don't want them to have the title of, let's say, like recruiting. I don't want these people to be recruiting coordinators who are doing that. So I can exclude certain people from my list. So there's a million ways that you can use this, right? If I want VPs of engineering, but not VPs of IT, you could use the is not any of filter with job titles. So those are like 2 or 3 sort of more advanced ways of using the job title filter to build a really high quality list. I'm going to actually build a list as we go along. I'm going to be looking for CEOs of construction companies. And that's what I'm going to get into next. So we're actually going to talk next about industry and keywords, which is really important. But I'm going to pause really briefly, take a look at the chat and see if this made sense to you guys so far. So we're going to go into industry now. So if I go back to the questions that you guys submitted, how do I find a specific type of company? Let's do it. So what I'm going to do is on the left-hand side, I'm going to go industry and keywords. I'm going to fly this out. This is another one of these filters that looks deceptively simple because if you just click on this, it's just giving you this. But if you click down on the advanced settings and on company keywords, it's going to open a whole new world for you guys. So what I had done before is I had said, hey, I only want the CEO with a verified email. And now I'm going to get really specific with my industry and keywords. So here's what I want to do for you guys. Let's say that you're selling into an HVAC. That was the example I used for my email earlier. HVAC is heating, ventilation and air conditioning, for those of you who don't know, okay? Well, here's the thing. If I type in HVAC into industry and keywords right here for industries, I get no results. So you might stop right here and just be like, what? Apollo can't do this? Like, I'm going to leave. One thing you'll notice is that there's all of these industries on the left-hand side that are kind of in this like weird little window that you got to scroll down. It's kind of a pain. So what I want you all to do is if you just go to knowledge.apollo.io and search industry, you're going to see that we have this knowledge base article on industry filters, and every industry filter available to you in Apollo is listed right here. Okay. But what I'm going to show you now, so I'm trying to sell into HVAC. I have a really specific industry. I'm not going to use the industry search. I'm going to use the keyword. So I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to go include to this keywords, company keywords. Okay. If you drop down this little button that says advanced, you'll get some more information on what we're actually looking at. What I'm looking at here with the keywords is this little flyover. Okay. I can see the description, the social media description and SEO description are not included because they can be inaccurate. This is what this is telling me. So what this is doing is I'm going to search for the company name for keywords in the name and tags in social media. If I want to, I can include the description that companies provide themselves to Google and Bing. But check this out. So before I was up here, I was looking for HVAC. I don't have anything. There's no results. I'm frustrated. But now I can type in HVAC and I've got 1,000 people who are the CEO of an HVAC company with a verified email. And obviously I can go and add a location filter. I can go and get even more dialed in. Okay. So maybe though, I want to get even more targeted. Maybe I want to go HVAC. I want to go air conditioning. Maybe I want to go heating, but I don't want companies that do plumbing. So I can scroll down, I can hit exclude keywords, and I can type plumbing. Now, this is just one example, y'all. Y'all are not all selling to HVAC, right? You guys are selling to different companies of different kinds. But if your question is, how do I get really targeted in a really specific industry? This is probably your answer, right? Your first way is to go into industry and keywords and look through that list. And if that list, if we don't have your industry here, scroll down to keywords and you can use include keywords and exclude keywords to get really, really targeted with the companies that you're reaching out to. Okay. So one thing I'm going to do now, I'm going to clear this out because I'm going to continue building my list. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to search for construction. And I'm going to include a keyword here. Maybe I'm going to say concrete. So I'm just going to, I don't know, I'm just making this up. So now I'm going to go to location. Okay. So this is another question you guys asked. We had a lot of questions in here about how do I search by zip code? How do I search by very specific locations? So here I am back into Apollo. Okay. Now the location filter gives us a couple options. One is contact, one is account HQ. So the contact filter here is where is the individual person located? The account HQ filter is where is the company located? All right. So one thing that I can do is I can just search by the city, state, country, or zip code. So my zip code is 94501. I could search for that. I don't see any CEOs of concrete construction companies here, but I can search for California and maybe I'll get a bigger list. There you go. I have 555. Now, if I want to search in California, but not in a certain part of California, let's say in California, but not in Los Angeles, I can just drop down this exclude locations and I can exclude a certain part of the state. Okay. That's one way you could do it. The other way you can get really targeted is just this little button that says select zip code radius. If I want to search within 25 miles, 50 miles, 100 miles, or 300 miles of a zip code, I can just type in the zip code. I can type in the radius. And you'll see this little notification that this only applies to net new people. That means people that we haven't saved yet. But if I hit enter, I now have 179 people who are within 50 miles of me. So when we think about a pivot filter, right, I now have a list of people that I could drive to go and see. So when I write an email to them or I use messaging for them, I can actually reach out to them and I could try and meet them in person, or I can reference a common location or a landmark or something. Like there's just way more I can do because I've reached out to people who are really close to where I am located. All right. So far, we've covered job title, location, industry and keywords, and the verified email status. I'm going to cover a couple more basic filters before we layer in some of these more advanced filters here in a second. I just want to show you all management level, which is over here in job titles. So management level is hidden. It's down here. I think we covered this a second ago. It's VP, head of. You have all these different ones that you can pick from. And the last one was number of employees. Sorry, I confused myself. So I I have the ability to search by how many people work at a given company. So maybe if I'm selling to people and I only want to sell to small companies, I can choose a predefined range, or I can set a custom range. So I could say, hey, anywhere from 5 to 12, maybe that's my sweet spot. Give me the CEO of these really small construction companies that do concrete who are located within 50 miles of me. I have 47 people that now I don't have a big spray and pray list. I have a golden list. This list is money, right? This list is really, really good for me because it's really targeted. So these are the like basic email or the basic filters that you guys can apply in Apollo to start building targeted lists. But I want to show you how to go beyond this to use some of those pivot filters that I was mentioning to build really, really quality lists that can help you have better messaging. So before I do that, I'm going to pause really quickly and in the chat and just again check in and make sure that this is valuable for you guys. Oh, you're right. I've excluded concrete. Good catch. That's hilarious. Cool. So for this next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to remove some of these keywords that I looked for originally, and some of these filters because I want to broaden out my location a little bit and broaden out the size of my list. Okay, so those of you who are asking if I can filter with the company's remote office or hybrid, please put that in the Q&A. I'll try and get to that in the end. All right, so we're going to keep going. I've changed some of my filters to give me a bigger size list because I want to show you guys something that's I think really valuable. So I'm going to go United States. I'm looking for CEOs of construction companies who I have a verified email for. Okay, now we're going to get into the pivot filter stuff. So let's say I'm selling SEO services. I've got on the left-hand side this filter that's called buying intent. And I want to explain this. A lot of people get confused about this. Buying intent is a filter that works at the company level. So let me say that again. This works at the company level, meaning we're able, because we partnered with a network of intent providers, of data providers, we're able to identify whether or not a company, someone associated with a company is interested in a certain topic based on their search traffic and what websites they're visiting. What we're not able to do is identify individual people who are looking for specific topics. So this is an important thing to note, okay? Buying intent, those of you who are asking how are we creating this data, we've partnered with two companies. One's called LeadSift, one's called Bombora. And those have networks of like cookies on all different kinds of websites all over the internet. And they're able to track back to known IP addresses that are associated with certain companies' web traffic volume, okay? So what this means is that buying intent doesn't tell you that Brian Gaudio is interested in the thing you're looking for. Buying intent tells you that someone at Brian's company is interested in the thing you're looking for, okay? So I don't want you to use buying intent as, hey, Brian, I know you're looking to buy this. I want you to use it as a pivot filter to write a really personalized email like I talked about earlier. So if I'm looking for SEO, it's, hey, I'm going to ask them a question. Is it worth chatting about SEO? Now, the reason that this is valuable is because you know that they're probably thinking about this already. Somebody at the company is, okay? But this isn't a filter that tells you like a golden bullet exactly what they're interested in. So what I want to do, though, is I want to go buying intent. I'm going to say their intent score is high for any of the topics that I've added here. And I've got all these topics on the left-hand side. And you can see that I've got 6 people who have high buying intent for one of my topics. And these are all marketing topics, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this search. I'm going to say high buying intent, construction, CEOs, California or USA, whatever. And what I can do now is I can give myself alerts, search subscription alerts. So I can get an email from Apollo anytime a new lead meets this criteria. And I can just go ahead and hit save search. I set that to weekly. So I'm going to get an email anytime somebody meets this criteria. So here's what I'm going to do, y'all. I'm going to select these 6 people. I'm going to hit save. And one thing I'm going to do, those of you who are saying I'm having trouble getting a mobile number, I'm going to click this drop down right here. It says mobile numbers. And I'm going to click this button. And when I do that, when I hit save, Apollo is going to try and find mobile numbers for these people. Okay. I'm also going to add them to a list. And this list is going to be high buying intent construction CEOs. And here I'm going to hit save. So I now have this really, really targeted list of people who are construction CEOs who somebody at their company is interested in marketing. That might be valuable to me as a marketing, somebody who's selling marketing services. So I've got that one list. But now I'm going to move away from buying intent and I'm going to go to another one. Let's say I'm going to go to job postings. This could be another pivot filter, okay? So what if they are hiring for a marketer? I've got 34 people who are hiring for marketing. What I'm going to do is the exact same thing. I'm going to hit save search. Now I'm going to say save as a new search. I'm going to say hiring for marketing, construction CEOs USA. Give me an alert every week. Okay. And now here's what I want to show you guys that I think might be valuable to a lot of you when it comes to actually targeting your messaging based on your list. So I save those two lists, right? I can see those if I go to lists, and then I can hit include lists and drop down. So I've got CEOs, high buying intent construction CEOs. Oh no, I didn't save the last list. Let me get there. Sorry. I'm going too fast even for myself. So here's my people. I'm going to select them. I'm going to select all the people here. I'm going to hit save again. I'm going to add them to a list, which is hiring marketing construction CEOs USA. All right. Now I'm going to hit save. So Apollo went and got it's getting all of their email addresses for me, right? If I refresh my page, we're getting there. They should show up any minute now. Apollo's going slow. I don't know why. But what I'll be able to do, what I wanted to show you guys is I can go and I can search for people who are on my list for hiring marketing construction or hiring marketing people, but not on my list for buying intent. Okay. So when you're doing this, it doesn't matter what filters you're using. This is the way to create mutually exclusive lists. I hope this makes sense. I made a list over here that was for all construction CEOs hiring marketing people. I made a separate list for construction CEOs with high buying intent. And now when I go to sequence them or when I go to reach out to them, I don't want to hit both, I don't want to mix up those two lists. I want to go and hit up all the people hiring marketing and exclude my buying intent. I want to go hit up, and I could do the opposite. I want to go hit up my buying intent people and exclude my marketing. There's a lot more I could do here, right? Think of the possibilities. I can go hit up people who are using a certain technology, but not have buying intent, or using a certain technology and not hiring. And this lets you be really, really targeted in your outreach. So I'm going to pause really quickly. I want to catch up in the Q&A in the chat. We've covered a bunch of different topics. While I do this, I'm going to run a quick poll and I'm going to open it for you guys. There's a bunch of different options for the poll. Buying intent, which I just showed you guys, and it is a filter that requires a paid subscription to Apollo to get the most out of. Cool. Richie is saying, where does Apollo get info for job postings, LinkedIn, personal career trait? Tried that function, can't find anywhere that they're hiring for that specific position. It's a combination. I think we have partnerships with things like, we get data from places like Indeed or Monster, Job Hunter, whatever, and as well as their company site. And that's where we look for that. So a lot of people are asking about buying intent and how that works. Again, it's a little bit of a secret sauce, right? It's a little bit proprietary data there from these data providers. Basically, what you need to know is we've partnered with LeadSift and Bombora. They have little networks all across the internet of like different topics, and they're tracking that back to the company level, okay? And a couple more questions before we continue with what I was showing a second ago in the product. How big is the Apollo list in the UK? How much Canadian content's in the database? Okay, I'm seeing a lot of people asking very similar type of questions. I'm going to show you guys how to find the size of the database in the country that you are in. If you want to see the size of the Apollo list database in a certain country, just going to come to location, and now you have this select region. And I saw a few questions. One person asked about the United Kingdom. Here you got it. 11 million people in the United Kingdom. Now, again, the most important filter in all of Apollo to me is this one, email status. So there's 6.2 million of those 11 million have got a verified email, okay? You can do this with any country that you want. So people asked about Canada, it's the same move. It's like that, Canada. I'll hit enter. I have 3 million people in Canada with a verified email. And then you can go and you can just add the same. Those of you who are asking Mexico, it's the same process, y'all. It's the same. Let's type in Mexico. I have 1.1 million people with the verified email in Mexico. You can do this from all the any different countries that you want to. Okay. All right. A couple filters I wanted to talk about. So those of you who are asking about likely to engage. So what Apollo has done, right? If you have connected your mailbox to Apollo, Apollo is able to kind of see some of the information about like whether or not people are responding to the emails that they're being sent. So this likely to engage filter, that's what that is. We know that the email is valid. We know that it's verified, and we know that they're responding to emails. So they may be more likely to engage than other people. However, for me, y'all, I would just really say the verified filter is probably the best, because if you just go likely to engage, you're going to bring that number down a lot. And whether they were likely to engage with somebody else doesn't mean they're likely to engage with you, and vice versa. Okay. So I want to show you a couple more filters that you could use as a pivot filter I think are really valuable. And the first one is technologies. So this is a really interesting filter that we have. Okay. The way that the technologies filter works is Apollo can actually see what technologies certain companies have connected to their website. That's like the primary way that we're able to do this. We're also able to, we collect data from all different kinds of data providers all over the world, and we can make some really good guesses as to what products or services people buy or what technologies people buy. So I want to show you this. So let's say I continue with my analogy or like my example that I was a marketing agency. If I wanted to search for people who are using Ahrefs, which is an SEO software, right? This is a filter that works at the company level. So this is going to tell me that these companies use Ahrefs. So if I'm an Ahrefs expert and I want to reach out to people and offer them my services managing their, Ahrefs account or whatever, I can say Google AdWords. That's going to be one, right? Let me find it. Google Tag Manager was one. I think Google AdWords conversion. There you go. So if I sell AdWords services, I can come in here, and one of the ways I can build a really targeted list is I can just search for people who have that Google AdWords snippet on their computer. And here we go. I've got all of these people. Tim Tebow, you're about to get blasted with emails, buddy. So this technologies filter is pretty powerful. It's got a lot of different technologies available. I would highly recommend, again, coming back to the knowledge base. If you search technologies, I'm pretty sure you'll get something. But if not, you can come to one thing I wanted to show you guys. You go to search filters, click search filters overview, and we actually have a glossary of every filter in Apollo right here. So you guys can see this. Every filter in Apollo is right here. And when you click on it, anything you want to know about that filter is going to be here. We're going to lay out how it works and how to use it. So this is a really, really awesome resource that my team just made. We just went live today. So I'm going to run that. Click here for filter glossary. Lastly, I do want to show you guys one other filter, because I'm seeing some of you in the chat say things like, I'm not having any luck, or I'm not getting good responses, or people aren't replying to me. Go ahead and click this more filters button, and it's going to fly out all the filters that you have in Apollo. And I want to show you something that like nobody knows about this. It's pretty cool. And I will talk about SIC codes in a second, y'all, before I start taking questions from the Q&A. Date refreshed in Apollo. This to me is like the best, most powerful filter ever. If you guys want to only reach out to people who have recently been updated in Apollo, so there's a really high chance that their contact information is super accurate, this is the filter you want to use. You could just say, hey, give me anybody who's been updated in the last 90 days. And then I can apply that. I've got 11 million people, and I can just cut down my list. Again, going back to the concept of adding all those other filters we talked about, the job title, company location, a pivot filter or two. This is just a way to make sure that the people you're reaching out to is really up to date. It's a really high quality list. So that's a filter that almost nobody knows about. It's date refresh in Apollo. Really powerful. Highly recommend you use it. The last filter I'm going to talk about, which we got a lot of questions about, is SIC codes. Now, those of you who aren't familiar with SIC codes, the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, which is a United States government agency, publishes a list of of codes where they categorize all different kinds of companies. And you can see this list here. How I got here was I just dropped down SIC codes, and there's this little fly out SIC code list. So if you sell to a really specific industry, you can apply the SIC code and Apollo will pull that up. Now, this is like, I'll be honest with you, there's tons of SIC codes and it's not comprehensive. We don't have all of them in Apollo, but I'll search 5700 is retail home furniture, furnishings and equipment stores. If you happen to sell to that industry, you can just come in and type in 5700, hit apply filters, and there's almost 300,000 people who work at companies with that SIC code. And that would be things like IKEA or whatever. We are constantly adding more SIC codes to the Apollo database. And we do have that really helpful code list if you're not familiar with it. So this is another way to sell into a really highly targeted and specific industry. So with that being said, we're right at the 45 minutes. I promised you guys I would take your questions and do a Q&A. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen for a second. Let me pop over to the Q&A. Let's see what we've got. Can we filter by keyword in the people section? Yeah, we could do that. So I think what you're asking is for job titles. And I'll share my screen to answer this question. So Lauren, she's asking, or they're asking, can we filter by keyword in the people section? So the keyword that you would want to, if you're searching for people, the job title is the best way to look for keywords. And there's a way to do this that I didn't cover that's a little more complicated. It's called Boolean search. So Boolean is a way to build like and or string operators. It's basically like a coding language that just uses words. So one way you could do it is the simplest way, is any of, and you would just say, I don't know, manager. And you're going to get like any person with the title manager in their title, or the word manager in their title is going to come up. But you could also construct a Boolean search where you could string together like a whole bunch of options here, and including some keywords. So it would be something like this, is like manager and then you would enter your keywords. And it might be like operations or design, and like you could build a string of these with any of the keywords that you're looking for, you would include in the Boolean search. This is definitely advanced. This is like, this is like another level. If you want a tutorial on how this works, if you hover over this little question mark, hit this little link, it'll take you to an article on how Boolean search works and how to use it in the Apollo context. So highly recommend you do that. But again, job titles will pull in keywords as well for you. Okay. So that's the first question that I want to answer for you guys there. Veronica is asking, what's the way to filter down companies that have web apps, SaaS, and platform solutions? It's a good question. So to be honest, like, I'm not entirely sure exactly how I would do that. I would probably start by going for the industry. I'd come down here, industry and keywords, and I would look for software, which is like a really popular one. And then in keywords, you might want to look for like app, mobile app, platform, something like that. The other way you could do this is like, some people ask questions about this. What if you have a list of companies, but you don't know the people that work there? How do you go at this the other way, right? So this is my answer to you, Veronica. I would say you could start with a list of companies that have web apps that you know about, and then you want to go and build a list from them. What you could do is you could just hit companies, and this is, a lot of people don't know this. I can go on the right-hand side, I can hit imports. I can hit bulk import from CSV, and then on the right-hand side, it says import accounts. So if I did do that, like if I went and built a list of companies that I knew had web apps or whatever, I could select the list. I could hit import. I'm going to bring it into Apollo. You guys are going to see that in a second. And then if I select the companies, I can just hit this button that says find people. And what it's going to do is it's going to bring me back to the people tab, and all of those companies' names will be applied in the company filter. And then I can just build my list as usual. So I ended up doing one that was like, these are construction type companies, but that's the other way you could do it, is like, hey, I know all these companies have apps. Maybe you can go to the Google Play Store, you go to the Apple Store, just come up with a list of those companies, throw those in a spreadsheet, pop that into Apollo, build your list from there. that'd probably be the way I would approach it. I'm sure there are better ways. I hope that made sense for you, Veronica. Okay. How do you prevent list fatigue? Can you filter out contacts who've been sent a certain number of emails? That's a great question, and one that we didn't cover that you absolutely can do. So I'm going to hit more filters on the left-hand side. You can see that I have this engagement activity bucket, and there's a lot of filters here that I didn't cover before, because this is not quite net new list building, right? Like most of the time when I think about building a list, I'm thinking about new people that I want to reach out to. But what this is people who I have already reached out to, and maybe I want to come and I want to segment that group of people based on whether or not they clicked my email or whether or not I've sent them an email. So that's how you would do the email sent. Now, right now, it's just yes or no. Did you send them an email? Yes. Did they send them an email? No. Not number of emails. The same thing for email clicked. I can say, did they click on a link, clicked at least 4 times and in the last week? And I can apply that filter. And then what you'll see is that obviously no one net new will meet that criteria. It will only be people in your saved contacts list. So that's a way, like if you guys are reaching out to a lot of people, let's say you've sent 500 emails in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and then today you want to go and figure out who should you cold call. You could do this, where you could come in, you would select saved right here, which is going to show you all people that you've saved already. And then you just say, did they click my email in the last day or two? Or did they reply to my email or whatever? And you're going to get that list of people. So that's how you would do that. I hope that was useful for you. Coming back into the Q&A, a lot of people are asking about lookalike audiences. And my honest answer is that Apollo doesn't really have a great lookalike audience feature right now. What we do have is something called personas, where persona is basically just a combination of really basic filters: number of employees, location, industry, keywords, and job titles. And if you come into Apollo and you create a persona, let's just call it like CEO construction. I'll come in here, I'll say job titles, I'll say CEO, and then I'll say industry was construction. If I do this and you start using Apollo enough, you will get recommended people to reach out to, and I'll show you where to find that. So you can come into the home tab. The sales rep control center is right here. You see this says sales rep control center, and then there's this button. I click it. It says recommended prospects. So these are going to be recommended prospects based on what you've done in the past. So if you've actually never seen this tab, go check this out. It's one of the coolest features of Apollo. Almost nobody knows about it. Almost nobody uses it. So I go to home again. There's this thing that says control center, sales rep control center, and then recommended prospects. That's the closest thing that we have to a lookalike audience. And it's based on what you've done in Apollo today. But it's not exactly like something like Meta or LinkedIn or whatever, where you can upload a lookalike and they'll run it for you. It's not exactly like that, but it's close. It's the closest thing that we have. I'm going to take a couple more questions before we wrap some things up. So Haley's asking, what is the number one mistake people make, either leaving out, don't use, or do too much, that limits maximizing Apollo lists? My answer to this question is cold calling. The number one mistake that people make, to me, is they don't cold call. They just rely on emails. And we have some data around this. If all you're doing, if you're doing sequences that are just cold automated emails, the majority of people who do that don't book a meeting. That's just the data. Just over 50% of people whose sequences are only automated emails do not book a meeting. But when you add any other type of step in a sequence, and I told you this webinar wasn't about sequences, and it's not, but if I were to go and make a sequence, you can see I can add any other type of step other than an automated email. If I add a manual email, if I add a phone call, if I add anything else, then the percentage of people who successfully book a meeting goes way up. It goes up over 50% for anything, and 70% of people who add one of each type of step: a manual email, an auto email, a cold call, and what's called a task, an action item. 70% of those people book a meeting. So if you're not successfully booking meetings today, and what you're doing is sending a lot of automated emails, and you're kind of spraying and praying, like we talked about, right? Where you have like one big list as opposed to 10, 20, 30, 40 really small targeted lists using some of what we talked about today. If that's what you're doing, you're just wasting time. So For those of you who are asking, you're saying like, I can't use Apollo to cold call. Use your cell phone. Use your own phone to cold call, right? And for those of you who are asking when the best time to cold call is, this is hot off the press data. I just got back yesterday, haven't even published it. So you're getting it because you're coming to the webinar. Apollo data indicates that the best time to cold call is 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. And for those of you who are saying like, how do I get those phone numbers? I'm going to show you, this will be the last thing we cover before we break. How do I get the phone number? So I showed you already how to go and build a list. And when you hit the save button, ask Apollo to find numbers for you. But I'm going to show you. So after you've saved a record in Apollo, you've got this saved tab right here. Click on it. On the left-hand side, if you hit more filters, there's this one. It's called phone status and confidence. And I can click this little drop down. And you'll see it says it will not return results when filtering net new people. What that means is that this filter only works for this saved tab right here, okay? And I can just say, do they have a number and do they have a mobile number? Or a direct work number, and is the number valid? I can hit apply, and now I've got 180 people who I have their phone number. So these are the people that I can cold call. And those who are asking best time for a cold call, it's 6 to 8 a.m. is the best time. The next best time was 6 to 8 p.m. But I would recommend trying, like just try different times. It's different for different industries and different locations as well. But this is the best way. Yeah, call them during dinner. People love that. For those of you who are saying there's no way, those of you who are saying like, no, I'm not going to do that. Y'all, that's why some people are booking more meetings than others, because, if you're willing to engage in that way and take the heat from cold calling and you learn to be good at it, that'll help you book more meetings. And that's a great way to end, because our next webinar is cold calling. It's all about cold calling, how to do it well, how to do it in a way that doesn't make people hate you. And for those of you who are saying, hey, 6 to 8, like, you don't have to do that. I made my living cold calling during working hours, right? I didn't call people early in the morning or late at night. That's just what the data says is the most likely to get an answer. But there's a lot of different ways to do it. So come back to our next webinar. It's going to be on cold calling. It will be in May. I appreciate you guys. I really, value your time, and I hope this is valuable for you. Appreciate you all. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you soon.